how's it going, boys and girls? That's right, the Crusader's back. And in today's video, I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm just gonna be doing a review of this particular influencer that I found on YouTube. Seems like there's a hell of a lot of new ones out there. Some giving good advice, some not so much. But I'm gonna do a review on this. This is her take on the housing market and buying a house and all that kind of stuff. And that happens to be one of my specialities. I happen to own multiple rental units and have done pretty well doing it. So what I say comes from experience. So without further ado, let's let her talk and see what she has to say about all of this. Here goes.
What if they lied to you about the American dream and home ownership? And what if we could rewrite the rules?
What the hell is going on?
Well, I think this is why young people are so mad today. How are they going to be able to afford a home when wages have stagnated?
In 2025, more senior citizens are buying homes than Gen Z and millennials combined. So while you were taught that if you got the job, kept your head down, saved 10%, we'd get the keys, that playbook is not just outdated, it's dangerous. Because owning a home isn't just about shelter, it's about status, it's about making it. So by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I'd buy a home in 2026 without having to be rich and doing what everybody else is doing, and how you can do this. And here's the truth, no one wants to say out loud, the American dream we were sold, it was a marketing campaign built by banks, pushed by politicians, backed by mortgage brokers, and it was brilliant. Because if everyone believes the finish line is a home, you've just created 330 million predictable customers. So you pay the mortgage, you get the insurance, you fix the roof, you upgrade the kitchen, die with equity. Meanwhile, the wealthy, they don't play that game. And at this point, somebody always goes like, but Cody, the price always goes up. Does it? If that was true, why don't billionaires only put money in houses since prices only go up?
All right, here's the thing. Billionaires they're a different breed of cat. They are a different level. Their wealth is usually accumulated through stock prices. That's most, if not all, billionaires. Their net worth is their stock price because they have stock. So that's not your typical average American.
That's absurd. Of course they don't. Everyday consumers, we just see the prices go up, but beneath the surface, there's a lot that you'll never see. An AEI housing analysis shows cheap loans inflate prices. How does that work? Well, builders like Lennar, they inflate prices through what's called concessions to builders, which basically means real estate insiders use a bunch of tricks to make housing pricing numbers look like they always go up.
All right, concessions are basically when the builder will say, we'll pay for closing or we'll buy down points, which makes it so your monthly payment is way lower. For people who are financing, that's a good thing because now they can get into a house they couldn't afford before. That's a real savings. It's not a trick. I mean, it's real.
Give 2 months free. They do what's called mortgage rate buy downs.
Yeah.
I think Ramit Sethi said it perfectly. In real estate, I think you should consider yourself the sucker in the casino and find every possible angle for how you're being taken advantage of. Because there are multiple sophisticated parties who want your money and are very good at convincing you to give it to them. At this point, people usually go like, but Cody, my house price went up. Okay, let's play that out. You bought a house. It's a good investment. Good job. Value increased $300,000? Well,
wow.
So how do you get that money out? Do you sell and move to another house? They're all more expensive now. Do you move to a new city? I guess, but your job, your business, your friends and family, all right here. Remember, rent is capped.
Okay. How do you get that money out? She just answered it herself. If you have a house that's gone up $300,000 in value, and the other houses have gone up $300,000 in value too, you now are living in a house that you couldn't afford when you bought it, before you bought it. So you get that money, that value out every month because you're able to use and live in a house that is now more expensive than you could have even afforded it. But now, because the price went up, you get to live in it. So, I mean, that's clear as day for me.
At a maximum, but home ownership also has all these hidden costs.
Rent is capped at a maximum. Really? How many places has she rented? Is the rent stayed the same? It's capped at a maximum for a year. 1 year. That is what you get. One. It's not capped. And same thing with taxes and insurance and all that kind of stuff. Mortgages that doesn't change every month. It changes every year. So this is based on a yearly thing. So, it's to say that rent is capped. That is complete and total bullshit. I mean, anybody who's rented, will back me up on that. Rents usually go up every time there's a new lease renewal. Rents go up.
Part 2, the middle class buys homes, the wealthy buy cash flow. This chart is fascinating, and it explains why 90% of people never get rich. Let's break it down. If your net worth is under $1 million, odds are your biggest asset is your house and your car. You're asset rich, but you're cash poor. Your wealth is actually locked behind walls. You can't touch it unless you borrow against it. That's not freedom. That is just dressed up debt.
All right. This is a very good point. The rich usually buy cash flow and the poor don't. That's the ass kicker with all of this. In reality, is finding something that gives you a return where you don't lose your money or get screwed. That's with people with money, like that. That is the game they play on the regular. It's all right. If I put money into this, will I get a return and not lose my money? So yeah, if you're a shrewd investor and you know how to, call every call, and yeah, you're going to make a ton of money. But most people aren't like that. Most people need a place to live, and putting value or equity into the place you live and using your living expenses to build wealth, I see that as a great tool. I don't see the point of how it's bad.
Now, if you're worth $10 million, how does that work? Well, then your biggest asset class isn't real estate. Instead of that, it is private businesses.
It could totally be real estate. You could have $10 million worth of rental property. How the hell, most people have millions of dollars in real estate. That's I've seen that every day. I don't understand. Oh, so only people for 10 million, they only have money in stock market and they don't have any real estate, right? Okay.
Where over 60% of their wealth comes from companies that spit out monthly, quarterly, even daily cash flow. Think about that for a second. While the middle class scrambles to buy their home, the wealthy focus on buying the income that pays forever. You don't need a house. You know.
Okay, yeah. Where do you go to do that? Where do you go to buy these businesses that are just going to go from the rip, start spitting out cash flow for you so you can put your feet up? That is complete and total bullshit. Has anybody out there ever tried to buy a business? Do you know, the likelihood of you failing at a business is it's 80%. Even if you've had successful businesses in the past, you can't just buy a business. Why the hell would people sell a business? It's like why are they selling if it's doing so great? My businesses that make money, I'm not even thinking of selling those because they're too good. They're too valuable. I want the cash flow. So it's and I guess if she's talking about the stock market, little dividends, you need to have millions and millions and millions of dollars in the stock market for you to be able to make money off dividends. Because that's just the way it works. Most stocks, you get your money through the appreciation, which if you want to realize that, you need to sell your stock in order to realize the appreciation. Whereas with a house, you can get rental income and not sell anything.
A profit machine that buys your house. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Wealth doesn't come from grinding harder. It comes from owning things that grow while you sleep. But most people spend their whole lives buying liabilities dressed up as milestones. A car, the second that you take it off the lot, loses about 30%.
That's true.
A house that bleeds you dry with taxes, repairs, and interest. A safe savings account that quietly loses to inflation every single year. That's why that chart stings.
House, okay, it's not... It doesn't lose to inflation. Housing prices historically have gone up. That's you know what I mean? That's not, oh my God. That's just not true. A car and a house are two very big different things. Car, yeah, the value of a car is always going to go down unless it turns into some classic car thing. And that takes usually decades and you've got to have it in pristine condition. But a house, that is an asset.
Shows the real divide. At the bottom of it, people's net worth is stuffed into cars and homes. And it feels like progress, but it's not compounding. It's dead money. It's idle. It's stagnant. If you want to climb a few rungs on the wealth ladder, everything flips. See, the wealthy, they don't hoard stuff. They own equities, shares of businesses, private companies, cash flowing real estates, assets that pay them every day, even when they're on the beach asleep or bored.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You need to have a lot of money in order to buy those things. Most banks won't give you loans. A bank isn't going to give you, if you go into a bank and say, hey, you know what? I don't want to buy a house. So, you know, you don't have to give me $500,000 for a house. What I want is I want to put $500,000 into some business. You think the bank is going to do that unsecured at a low interest rate? You think the bank is going to give you millions of dollars to buy a business or put money in the stock market? No, they're not going to do it. It's like, dude, for real? If you want to buy a business, you need to show cash flow. They need to see money going into accounts. They're going to make you have a personal guarantee. It's not easy to get large sums of money for a business, especially when you're starting up. A house, anybody can get a mortgage as long as you have a good enough credit score, a down payment, verifiable income. Anybody can get a mortgage, and you have the lowest interest rate on a mortgage. A mortgage interest rate is way lower and over a way longer period of time than any other type of loan. Even in an investment loan, if you wanted to buy, like, let's say a rental property, it's harder and more expensive to do than buying a property for you to live in, period.
Here's the truth.
And I know this because I've done it multiple times.
Nobody wants to swallow. Wealth grows really slow until it grows really fast. It looks boring for years, and it feels like nothing's happening until right here, which is when something called compounding shows up. This is when you start to get exponential returns. But most people actually never make it this far. They quit right before the curve bends. They bail in year 9 of the 10-year game. If you actually want to get rich, you got to stop performing for people who don't pay your bills. Buy things that make money instead. Own them long enough to let compounding do its quiet, violent work. Because once your money starts earning more than you do, wealth stops becoming a dream. Part 3.
I mean, that stuff, that's good advice, but it's like, she didn't give any examples of how, exactly like what to actually invest in in order for that to work. You can compound. Here's the thing that people don't realize or fail to realize, that if you own a house, the longer you own it, the more equity you have. And also all the other prices go up normally over 10 years. Prices of houses historically go up. So now you're able to live in something that you couldn't afford or would cost you way more if you were to buy it all over again. And then with that savings, what can you do? You can invest in other things, because now the people who didn't buy and having to rent, they're having to pay more. See what I mean? Just because you buy a house, that doesn't mean you can't invest in the stock market too, with the savings that you'll get from buying.
Real estate as investment. Let's get real here. Let's look at long-term performance of the house versus the stock market. So a stock beat owning a house by over 3x over the last 20 years. If you put $100K into the stock market instead of into home equity, you would have more like $350 to $450K as opposed to $200K today.
All right. Putting money into a house makes it so your down payment, or makes it so your monthly payment is lower the more money you put into a house. So if you're living in the house, that means that your bills are lower. If you put the equity into, let's just say, a rental property, that means more of the rent is your profit. So that's one thing people miss. When it comes to real estate for an investment, you get two things. You get appreciation and you get monthly income. So yearly, most of my properties are making about $40,000 a year in profit. That has nothing to do. If the price of the house goes up, down, left, right, doesn't matter. Rent's still due on the first. See what I mean? And I'm getting that rent regardless of where the market is and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I think a lot of people fail to realize that.
Yeah. And in some periods, much more than that. And that's just the math. A lot of people at this point go like, Codie, I want to own a rental property. Like, okay, fine. Let's break this down. Let's say you save up for a rental property. The average price in the US is around $400,000.
All right, that's
so
true.
You close the deal, you rent it out, and after the mortgage, maintenance, taxes, and tenant calls about leaky faucets, you're bringing in $200 a month in net income. That is $2,400 a year for $400,000 in what's called capital risk.
No, it's not, because you finance that. If you're only making a positive of $200, that means you have a mortgage on it. So the bank loaned you $400,000 for you to make a positive cash flow of $200. So you're building equity while you're sitting and doing nothing. And as far as tenants calling you leaky faucets and all that kind of stuff, the major things with a house are the roof, the water heater, and the AC. Those are like the major things. The rest of the stuff, it doesn't break every month, okay? That's just not how it works in reality. And a leaky faucet, if it's something that I have my rentals in a place where I can just zoom down there and do it myself, but it's not that expensive to fix a leaky faucet.
That is a 0.6% return. You'd make more money in a savings account, and a savings account won't have to have a last-minute roof replaced. And then dealing.
Who has a last-minute roof replaced? Who has that? Like, you got to have an inspection before you buy. But I mean, like, you're gonna know the condition of your roof before you buy the house. You know, I mean, that's just something you're gonna know. My property's in Florida, and they've gone through hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. I replaced one roof on a house because it was old, because it was like 17 years old, and the insurance company wouldn't insure it unless I replaced it. One. I have multiple properties. So it's like, you know, that's not something that like happens every month.
With 5 renters and a broken water heater. Now let's take the same $400K and buy a small business. I know, it's riskier. But before you freak out.
Yeah, it is riskier. 80% of businesses fail. What are you going to do? Buy a hot dog stand, sell ice cream cones? $800K isn't that much when it comes to buying businesses.
You're young. You have to take risks somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Get in a bunch of debt while you're young. Yeah, sounds great.
Ever going to make money. There is no rich without risk. So yes, there's more risk that the business could fail completely. But there's a 100% guarantee that buying a house is not going to make you a millionaire. So where's...
What? Okay. Tell that to the people that bought their houses back in the 80s, that their houses are now worth over $1 million. Tell that to them.
The real risk, I guess. Instead, I'd say like go for boring: lawn care, property management, pool cleaning, dog grooming. And if you do it right, it looks more like this. So
who's going to work those businesses? Are you going to work? So now you got to work? Are you shitting me? Oh yeah, dog grooming, or you know, I don't know how to do that. Does anybody? I mean, you got to have somebody trained, a trained professional to do that. What happens when they don't show up? What happens when they nick the dog and now the people are pissed? You ever think of that? You know, it's like, or the pool company. What happens when, the guy you hired forgets to fucking put chlorine in the pool, it turns green, and then the people are pissed and sue you? I mean, there's way more stuff that goes wrong when it comes to a business than a rental property. They want to talk about leaky faucets. Are you shitting me?
In this case, you're still putting that same $400,000 into a
400.
business, and you're using a loan to do it, or you're using seller financing. I'll
Seller financing. Oh, okay. Yeah.
teach you that in a little
Please
bit.
tell me about that.
Could net you out, instead of $2,400 a year, this thing is going to make you $60,000.
So you're going to buy a business for $400,000, finance it, right? That's what she just said, and you're going to make 60 grand when it's all said and done. Well, wow, teach me more, Obi-Wan.
That's $5,000 a month. And we get there because most small businesses profit 15 to 30% per year.
Most small businesses fail the first year. Over 80% fail. That is the statistics you're working with, that this person's working with. At least with a house, people need a house. People need a place to live, regardless. If your business idea of selling poopy flavored lollipops doesn't work out, you lose all that. But if the house, as far as the house is concerned, at least you still have the house. You know, people will buy it to live in it, buy it as an investment to rent it out. You have something that's still of value. Some pool company business that you bought is not going to be worth shit if you get a bad reputation, you can't get customers, you can't get the chemicals and stuff to be able to make book. I mean, you lose all of it. This is horrible advice.
So that's 15% of $400,000 is $60,000. That's $60,000 a year in income.
What are the businesses? Please, madam, please mention some of these businesses that you're advising these people get into, that you don't have to work your ass off or have some sort of a skill. Please, I want to hear that.
You know what's more interesting? If you compare the two, that's 25x. The real estate return. What we teach and do every day. You don't have to learn from me. Go learn from anybody in the world on how to do this. Go start the business instead of buying it. But get into the game of business. I've taught 14,000 people at
here we
thinking how to
go.
do this thus far. And it is the game the rich play and the poor never do.
This explains it all. She does seminars for how to buy and set up businesses. So, I mean, here we go right here. That's bingo. This is why she's saying what she's saying. It's not because it's your best interests in mind. It's because she wants you to buy her product. That's why. It's not because it's what she's saying is the truth, clearly. Every time. Unbelievable.
I've personally bought businesses when I had money, when I didn't have money. I've helped people buy businesses with no money. We've made more $1 million business owners than I can count. Not because I'm smart, but because this is just the math game between the two.
See?
Because
Come on down to my seminar.
ownership is the only way that is repeatable I've found to make money. Now, part 4, passive income is a lie. Choose the right kind of hard. People say, but Codie, business is risky. I want passive income. You're right, business is risky. Have you ever found a way to make money or gain wealth that doesn't have risk involved?
Yeah, less risk, real estate.
If you do, please send it to me.
It's called real estate.
One of my episodes, which I highly recommend you listen to on my podcast, I had a conversation with a self-made billionaire, Jenny Just, and she told me the same thing that I think, which is one of our biggest problems in the US today is we do not take enough risk to get rich. We actually demonize it. She would say that in order to get rich, you have to have what is called a risk budget. This is actually something that all investors have. It tells you how much risk you're comfortable with. And
all right, I'm going to tell you something about risk right now. And this is the reality of it. In order to be able to take the big risks, you need to reach the level of fuck you. If you guys don't know what that is, the level of fuck you is that you have enough money, you've paid for a house, you got a paid for car, you got a little money in the bank to where you can comfortably live if shit goes south. You need to reach the level of fuck you. And in order to reach that level, real estate is one of the best ways to do it. Because now, if you've got rental properties and passive income and your cost of living is low because you bought your house years ago and the payment hasn't gone up that much, then you have now extra money that you can go and spend on the risky shit that if it doesn't work out, you're not royally fucked. So that's like, that's the huge part of it. I'll bet that billionaire, she was operating and taking her risks from the level of fuck you. That's the only way to do it.
then you figure out a strategy for what's called risk mitigation. And so that means a way that is more likely to make you money with less downside. That is what I teach. Let's talk about the opposite side. Now, real estate.
It's like, what you need to do is very important is you only buy good deals, not bad deals, right? Oh, shit. Oh, let me write that down, right?
Estate isn't passive. We've already talked about you're dealing with roofs, rodents, regulations, tenants.
Roofs, rodents, Okay, the roof, lady. How many roofs are replaced once every 17 years? They're not replaced every year. Rodents, I've never had one in my property. You hire pest control. That's it. $30 a month. Regulations? I mean, if you're doing a Airbnb or some shit like that, but I mean, what? You got to make sure the lawn's cut and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like that. It's not.
3 a.m. emergencies. Business isn't passive either.
3 a.m. emergencies. I have multiple properties. I've probably had that maybe in over 8 years. I've had maybe two nights where somebody called me.
You'll have to hire, lead, sell, learn, fire people. But here's the difference. One builds a little bit of profit and slow equity. The other builds cash flow, skills, and leverage. So the real question is, do you want low effort, low return hard? Or do you want high impact, high leverage hard? Everything is hard. You just pick your flavor.
Right, but here's the thing: what you need a base. You're not gonna if somebody is only able to get a few $1,000s together. You need to conserve that. You need to make sure that lasts. You need to make sure that you don't lose it. After you have that, and you have that, then you can start taking the big risks. But it's like the people that haven't bought homes yet, that are listening to this and going to this idiot's seminars are not people who have already gotten all that. And now it's like, okay, how do I get to the next level? How do I make another 10 million? Like that.
And by the way, freedom is not passive. Freedom is earned through ownership. Now, part 5, the risk most people never take. Most people are terrified of taking the wrong risk. But here's the truth. They're playing defense while their life runs out on the clock. Bill Perkins said it perfectly. The biggest risk most people take is not taking enough risk for the life they want. So what do wealthy people do? They stack the deck. They don't gamble. They negotiate terms. They structure upside. They engineer the outcome, and you can do the same.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're just going to write all the terms in your favor for your deals? Gee, don't you think the guy on the opposite party is thinking the same thing?
If you know someone who needs to hear this, send them this video. All right, part 6. If you still want to buy a home in 2026, here's how I'd do it.
This
I
ought to
think
be
this
good.
is really smart. I'd treat buying a house like buying a deal, not like buying a dream. So strategy number 1 is called rent to own. This is where you lease with an option to buy. You rent the home, pay a little extra each month that goes towards the purchase price. You lock in the price today, you build credit, and you buy yourself time. If rates drop or your income grows, you buy on your terms.
That's not how that works. Rent to own, that is not how that works. Rent to own or lease option is when you put down a large sum of money and they cannot take over the rent price. They cannot have your rent payments going to the purchase of the home. Because if they do that, then they got to go through a foreclosure process, which is way lengthier. People who do landlords, I would never do rent to own where the person is getting a portion of the money added to the purchase price of the home, like being taken off of the price going towards the home, because I know that the laws, in order to foreclose on somebody, it takes a year minimum. In order to evict someone in Florida, anyways, 30 days. I'm not gonna take that risk. And also, it's more than just putting a little more down, to go towards the home. You have to put down. What is it? The lease option is a cost. And if you don't buy, you lose that money. And it's in the thousands. So you basically are just buying the ability to be able to buy the house at a later date. And if that date comes and goes and you don't buy, you lose that money. That's what it really is. This woman doesn't know shit.
Strategy 2 is called seller financing.
Oh, okay, let's hear this.
And seller financing is how I buy most businesses, but you can buy houses that way too. You find a distressed seller, you offer to buy their house over time with small down payments and monthly installments. No banks, no mortgage, just you, the seller, in a win-win contract. Let's explain this in detail. Seller financing is when the seller becomes the bank. Instead of you borrowing money from Wells Fargo or Chase, you borrow from the person who owns the house. So it looks like this. Homeowner gives you the money for you to buy their house. Over time, you pay the homeowner back the house as you get income. Instead of usually the money comes from the what? Bank. We're going to replace the bank with the owner. Now you still make a down payment, pay interest, pay monthly payments, sign a promissory note, have the house as collateral, but the seller gets the monthly checks instead of the bank. Now, why would anyone do this? Seller financing helps 2 types of people. Buyers, because it's going to help you with a lower down payment and easier approval, no underwriting. They're going to have faster closing, more flexible terms. Then it helps sellers because they actually get something really valuable, which is interest. So they keep earning on the house as you pay the mortgage. This also allows them to sell the house faster. And you avoid a lot of listing hassles, which could be additional money. In addition, there's tons of tax benefits by spreading income over years, which means maybe you pay less money to the IRS, which everybody is into. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win when done right. Now, how does it actually work step by step? First, you're going to agree on a price. So let's say the house is $300,000. Step 2, the buyer gives a down payment on the house. This example, this might be 10%, aka $30,000.
All right. No seller financer known to man is going to take 10% down because that's the only thing that's securing this. If you do seller financing, that means that if they don't pay, you got to go through the eviction process. If the people are like seller financing, the person who is the seller normally is just a regular person. They're not like a corporation. So they don't have a bunch of time to wait for their money. So the only way they're doing that, 10% is not even realistic. 20%, I would say, is the minimum for this. And that's if you can get somebody to agree to it, which most people won't.
Step 3, the seller finances the rest. That means that you are getting a house valued at $300K for $30K. The remaining balance, $270,000. Step 4, you're going to negotiate the loan terms. So you and the seller are going to agree on some type of interest rate, which might be 6%.
Oh yeah. So you're going to give them a cheaper rate than the bank. And I mean, why don't you just go to the bank? Like, I don't understand. Like, normally people that are interested in seller financing have bad credit. So they can't go to the bank. That's not an option for them. So they go for seller financing. You think the seller's going to be like, no, you have bad credit. I'm not going to finance you with some low rate. 6%. The interest rates right now are at 6.33 something. And that's with 800 credit. That's with having perfect credit. You still won't get that. So for her to say 6%, that's way off. You're paying way more interest with seller financing.
Then you're going to agree on a term, which might be something typical like 30 years.
Oh, 30 years. So somebody who's in their 40s who does seller financing, they're going to be old and gray by the time they get all their money. That's not seller finance. They're not going to do 30 years. What the hell? Where is this lady even for real? Has she ever actually attempted this shit? It seems like she read some book and then just is spitting out that information, trying to act smart. This is not real good advice in the real world.
And you're going to have a monthly payment.
And if you want to know how I know this, because I've had people try to set up seller financing with me as me being the seller. And there's no fucking way I'm going to take 10% over 30 years at 6% interest. I'd be like, screw you. No way. I'll get somebody else who can go to the bank and get approved and, not fuck around with all this bullshit. Because the seller, if you do seller financing, the seller's got his ass in the air a little bit, because if the person doesn't pay, now he's got to go through the eviction process, all that bullshit, which can take over a year. So they don't want to do that. And it's also expensive too. Evicting somebody is not free. You're not evicting, foreclosing. That's not free. So it's like there's a big risk to that. And in order to cover that risk, they want a big down payment. 10%, no fucking way.
That is set up. Step 5, you sign the paperwork. So the signing that you do is going to be typically what's called a promissory note, your promise to pay. Also something called the deed of trust. This is where the seller can take the house if you don't pay. Then step 6, you make your payments every month, just like you would in a bank. Pretty simple. Okay, so in this example, what does that mean? That means your monthly payment would be principal and interest, $16, $18 a month. The seller gets that amount.
$16, $18 a month. On 400,000? What math is she doing?
Every month. They also get that $30K upfront, and over 30 years, they're going to get about $310K plus in interest on it. That's why sellers love it, because they're going to make a lot of money. If a seller owns the house free and clear and really wants to sell, you might even be able to get them to give you 0%.
Bullshit! 0% interest? Why the fuck would a seller do that? Why would you do that? This is total. This person is an idiot.
So the $30K, and maybe increase your monthly mortgage payment to $2K-ish a month.
All right, 0%. Okay, so let me get this straight. If you own a house outright, you would take just some down payment and then 0% interest for the life of 30 years? Do you know how long you'd be waiting for your money? How about the missed opportunity costs there? She's all talking about opportunity costs. Yeah, right.
Is used in destruction.
Again, I'm on the other side of this. I have real estate that people would have tried to buy from me. So I'm speaking from the other side.
Rest sales, expired listings, when tax savings matter more to the seller than cash. Strategy 3 might be live in business. Buy a home that doubles as a money-making asset. Turn it into an Airbnb, rent out a room, or go bigger. Buy a duplex, live in one side.
Well, how are you going to do that without buying a house? Like, I thought you just said that you shouldn't buy a house. You should buy, you know what I mean? Didn't she just say you should go and buy businesses? She just said...
Rent the other. This isn't rocket science, it's deal thinking. And the second you start thinking like a deal maker, you stop feeling stuck.
All right, here's the deal with duplex. Duplexes are usually deeded as 2 units. So there's 2 different deeds of each side. So you would have to buy both if you're doing a duplex. Now, house hacking, that can work, but all you're doing is you're buying a house and renting out a room, which, hey, that sounds good to me if that's where you need to get started in order to pay for the house that you just bought. But I mean, you still got to go through the process, get a mortgage and do all the things, buy a single family house where you would live. So, I mean, she just said not to do that, that it's a lie and all this kind of stuff. So now she's saying you should do it. Okay.
You start seeing opportunities everywhere. Now, part 7, here's what I'd do instead of buying a house.
And Airbnb, by the way, that is not the bag it used to be. A lot of the municipalities have put the kibosh on that. So, the yearly rental, the long-term rental, that's still good. But Airbnb, I mean, I don't mess with Airbnb because of that, because of the headache and the turnover. That, you're going to have a lot more headache.
If I had 50K, 100K, even up to 400K, I wouldn't buy a house. I'd buy a boring business. With existing customers, predictable revenue, and an upside I could grow.
What business for $400,000 are you going to buy that, the chances that you're not going to get fucked? Like, where are you finding that?
Buy it with creative terms, seller financing, earnouts, and I'd use that cash flow to pay for rent or housing.
Seller financing is not something that's common, all right? The way she's acting like, oh yeah, just do that. No. Seller financing is like a very, very specialized, you will look for months, if not years, for deals before you find somebody who will agree to all this crap. And then you still got to think about, why are they selling the business? Why are they so desperate to sell their thriving business? You ever think about that? This person I can tell, has no experience in the real world as far as all this shit's concerned.
So I'd use my asset to pay for my liability. Then I'd buy more income streams in order to buy a house. And if you're wondering where to even find those kind of businesses, I'd probably go to BizScout. It's a small business marketplace where you can literally search for companies to buy, just like you'd search Zillow for houses. Except instead of picking out your next mortgage, you're picking out your next income stream. So stop playing their game. Build your own. And look, I don't hate houses. I'm a Zillow junkie like the rest of us. I just hate seeing smart people get stuck in a system designed to trap you. You weren't born to be a mortgage payment. And here's the thing. No one told you.
All right,
you don't need permission to get wealthy.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to check out that website just to see. Because I could do some content on that, the actual business website. Because I got to see. I'm very curious to see what's on there. But looks like this video's over. Those are my 2 cents. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Crusader out.